Growing Up by Gary Soto. Gary Soto is an American poet, novelist, and memoirist. In this short story, a teenage girl decides not to go on vacation with her family. Now that Maria was a 10th grader, she felt she was too grown up to have to go on family vacation. Last year, the family had driven 300 miles to see their uncle in West Covina. There was nothing to do. The days were hot, with a yellow sky thick with smog they could feel on their fingertips. They played cards and watched game shows on television. After the first 4 days of doing nothing while the grown-ups sat around talking, the kids finally got to go to Disneyland. Disneyland stood tall with castles and bright flags. The Matterhorn had wild dips and curves that took your breath away if you closed your eyes and screamed. The Pirates of the Caribbean didn't scare anyone, but was fun anyways, and so were the teacups, and It's a Small World. The parents spoiled the kids, giving each of them $5 to spend on trinkets. Maria's younger sister, Irma, brought a Pinocchio coloring book and a candy bracelet. Her brothers, Rudy and John, spent their money on candy that made their teeth blue. Maria saved her money. She knew that everything was overpriced, like the Mickey Mouse balloons that you could get for a fraction of the price in Fresno. Of course, the balloon at Juan's supermarket didn't have a Mickey Mouse face, but it would bounce and float and eventually pop like any other balloon. Maria folded her $5, tucked it into her red purse, and went on rides until she got sick. After that she sat on a bench, jealously watching over the other teenage girls who seemed much better dressed than she was. She felt stricken by poverty. All the screaming kids in nice clothes probably came from homes with swimming pools in their backyards, she thought. Yes, her father was a foreman at a paper mill, and yes, she had a doughboy swimming pool in her backyard. But still, things were not the same. She had felt poor, and her sundress, which seemed snappy in Fresno, was out of style at Disneyland, where every other kid was wearing Espirit shirts and Guess jeans. This year Maria's family planned to visit an uncle in San Jose. Her father promised to take them to Great America, but she knew that the grown-ups would sit around talking for days before they remembered the kids and finally got up and did something. They would have to wait until the last day before they would go to Great America. It wasn't worth the boredom. "Dad, I'm not going this year," Maria said to her father. She said to her father. He sat at the table with the newspaper in front of him. "What do you mean?" he asked, slowly looking up. He thought a moment and said, "When I was a kid, we didn't have money for vacations. I would be happy to go with my father." I know. You've said that 100 times," she snapped. "What did you say?" he asked, pushing his newspaper aside. Everything went quiet. Maria could hear the hum of the refrigerator and her brothers out front, in the front yard, arguing over a popsicle stick, and her mother in the backyard watering the strip of grass that ran along the patio. Her father's eyes locked on her with a dark stare. Maria had seen that stare before. She pleaded in a soft, daughterly voice. "We never do anything. It's boring. Don't you understand?" "No, I don't understand. I work all year, and if I want to go on a vacation, then I go, and my family goes too." He took a swallow of ice water and glared. "You have it so easy," he continued. "In Chihuahua, my town, we worked hard. You worked, even Los Chavalos, and you showed respect to your parents, something you haven't learned." Here it comes, Maria thought. Stories from his childhood in Mexico. She wanted to stuff her ears with wads of newspaper to keep from hearing him. She could recite his stories word for word. She couldn't wait until she was in college and away from them. "Do you know my father worked in the mines? That he nearly lost his life? And today his lungs are bad." He pounded his chest with hard, dirt-creased knuckles. Maria pushed her hair back and looked out the window at her brothers running around at the front yard. She couldn't stand it anymore. She got up and walked away, and he yelled for her to come back. She ignored him. She locked herself in the bedroom and tried to read 17, though she could hear her father complaining to her mother, who had come in when she heard the yelling. "Habla con tu mocosa," she said to him. She heard the refrigerator door open. He's probably getting a beer. A cold one, as he would say. She flipped through the pages of her magazine and stopped at a Levi's ad of a girl her age walking between two happy-looking guys on a beach. She wished she were that girl, that she had another life. She turned the page and thought, "I bet you he gets drunk when he drives tomorrow. And drives crazy tomorrow." Maria's mother was putting away a pitcher of Kool-Aid the boys had left out. She looked at her husband, who was fumbling with a wadded-up napkin. His eyes were dark, and his thoughts were on Mexico, where a father was respected and his word, right or wrong, was final. Raphael, she's growing up. She's a teenager. She talks like that, but she still loves you. Sure, and that's how she shows her love, by talking back to her father. He rubbed the back of his neck and turned his head, trying to make the stiffness go away. He knew it was true, but he was the man of the house, and no daughter of his was going to tell him what to do. Instead, it was his wife Eva who told him what to do. Let the girl stay. She's big now. She don't want to go on rides no more. She can stay with her Nina. The father drank his beer and argued, but eventually agreed to let his daughter stay. The family rose just after 6 the next day and was ready to go by 7:30. Maria stayed in her room. She wanted to apologize to her father, but she couldn't. She knew if she said, "Dad, I'm sorry," she would break into tears. Her father wanted to come into her room and say, "We'll do something really special this vacation. Come with us, honey." But it was hard for him to show emotions around his children, especially when he tried to make up to them. The mother kissed Maria. "Maria, I want you to clean the house and then walk over to your Nina's. I want no monkey business while we're gone, do you hear me?" "See, Mama. Here's the key. You water the plants inside and turn on the sprinkler every couple of days." She handed Maria the key and hugged her. "You be good. Now come say goodbye to your father." Reluctantly, she walked out in her robe to the front yard, looking down at the ground, said goodbye to the garden hose at his feet. After they left, Maria lounged in her pajamas, listening to the radio, thumbing through magazines. Then she got up, fixed herself a bowl of Cocoa Puffs, and watched American Bandstand. Her dream was to dance on the show, to look at the camera and smile, let everyone in Fresno know she could have a good time too. But an ill feeling stirred inside her. She felt awful about arguing with her father. She felt bad for her mother and two brothers who would have to spend the next 3 hours in the car with him. Maybe he would do something like crazy, like crash the car on purpose to get back at her, or fall asleep and run the car into an irrigation ditch, and it would be her fault. She turned the radio to a news station. She listened for a half hour, but most of the news was about warships in the Persian Gulf and a tornado in Texas. There was no mention of her family. Maria began to calm down. After all, her father was really nice beneath his gruffness. She dressed slowly, made some swishes with the broom in the kitchen, and let the hose run in a flower bed while she painted her toenails with her mother's polish. Afterwards, she called her friend Becky to tell her that her parents had let her stay home, that she was free, for 5 days at least. "Great," Becky said. "I wish my mom and dad would go away and let me stay by myself." "No, I have to stay with my grandmother." She made a mental note to give her Nina a call. "Becky, let's go to the mall and check out boys." "All right, I'll be over pretty soon." Maria called her Nina, who said it was okay for her to go shopping, but to be at the house for dinner time at 6. After hanging up, Maria took off her jeans and t-shirt and changed into a dress. She went through her mother's closet to borrow a pair of shoes and drenched her wrists in Charlie perfume. She put on coral pink lipstick and a smudge of blue eyeshadow. She felt beautiful, although a little self-conscious. She took off some of the lipstick and ran water over her wrists to dilute the fragrance. While she walked the 4 blocks to Becky's house, she beamed happiness until she passed a man who was on his knees pulling weeds from a flower bed. At his side, a radio was reporting a traffic accident. A big rig had overturned after hitting a car near Salinas, 20 miles from San Jose. A wave of fear ran through her. Maybe it was them. Her smile disappeared, and her shoulders slouched. No, it couldn't be, she thought. Salinas is not that close to San Jose. Then again, maybe her father wanted to travel through Salinas because it was a pretty valley with wide plains and oak trees, and horses and cows that stared as you passed them in your speeding car. But maybe it did happen. Maybe they had gotten in an awful wreck. By the time she got to Becky's house, she was riddled with guilt, since it was she who would have disturbed her father and made him crash. "Hi," she said to Becky, trying to look cheerful. "You look terrific, Maria," Becky said. "Mom, look at Maria. Come inside for a bit." Maria blushed when Becky's mother said she looked gorgeous. She didn't know what to do except stare at the carpet and say, "Thank you, Mrs. Ledesma." Becky's mother gave them a ride to the mall. but they'd have to get a bus back. The girls first went to Macy's, where they hunted for a sweater, something flashy but not too flashy. Then they left to have a Coke and sit by the fountain under an artificial tree. They watched people walk by, especially the boys, who they agreed were dumb but cute nevertheless. They went to the Gap, where they tried on some skirts, and ventured into the Limited, where they walked up and down the aisles, breathing in the rich smells of 100% wool and silk. They were about to leave when Maria heard once again on someone's portable radio that a family had been killed in an auto accident near Salinas. Maria stopped smiling for a moment as she pictured her family's overturned Malibu station wagon. Becky sensed that something was wrong and asked, "How come you're so quiet?" Maria forced a smile. "Oh, nothing. I was just thinking." "About what?" Maria thought quickly. "Oh, I think I left the water on at home." This could have been true. Maria remembered pulling the hose from the flower bed, but couldn't remember if she had turned the water off. Afterward, they rode the bus home with nothing to show for their 3 hours of shopping except a small bag of See's candy. But it had been a good day. 2 boys had followed them, joking and flirting, and they flirted back. The girls gave them made-up telephone numbers, then turned away and laughed into their hands. "They're fools," Becky said, "but cute." Maria left Becky when they got off the bus and started off to her Nina's house. Then she remembered that the garden hose might still be running at home. She'd hurried home, clip-clopping clumsily in her mother's shoes. The garden hose was rolled neatly against the side trellis. Maria decided to check the mail and went inside. When she pushed open the door, the living room gave off a quietness that she had never heard before. Usually the TV was on. Her younger brother and sisters were playing, and her mother could be heard in the kitchen. When the telephone rang, Maria jumped. She kicked off her shoes, ran to the phone, and picked up the receiver, only to hear a distant clicking sound. "Hello? Hello?" Maria's heart began to thump. Her mind went wild with possibilities. "An accident," she thought. "They're in an accident, and it's my fault. Who is it? Dad? Mom?" She hung up and looked around the room. The clock on the television set glowed 5:15. She gathered the mail, changed into jeans, and left for her Nina's house with a shopping bag containing her nightie and toothbrush. Her Nina was happy to see her. She took Maria's head in her hands and gave it a loud kiss. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, gently pulling her inside. "Oh, good. Becky and I only had popcorn for lunch." They had a quiet evening together. After dinner, they sat on the porch, watching the stars. Maria wanted to ask her Nina if she had heard from her parents. She wanted to know if the police had to call to report they had gotten in an accident. But she just sat on the porch swing, letting anxiety eat a hole in her soul. The family was gone for 4 days. Maria prayed for them, prayed that she would not wake up to a phone call saying that their car had been found in a ditch. She made a list of ways she could be nicer to them, doing the dishes without being asked, watering the lawn, hugging her father after work, and playing with her younger brother, even if it bored her to tears. At night, Maria worried herself sick listening to the radio for news of the accident. She thought of her Uncle Shorty and how he fell asleep and crashed his car. In the small town of Mendota, he lived confined to a motorized wheelchair and was scarred with burns on the left side of his face. "Oh, please don't let anything like that happen to them," she prayed. In the morning, she could barely look at the newspaper. She feared that if she unfolded it, the front page would be a feature about a family from Fresno who had flown off the roller coaster at Great America, or that a shark had attacked them as they bobbed happily among the white-tipped waves. "Something awful is going to happen," she said as she poured the Rice Krispies into a bowl. But nothing happened. Her father returned home, dark from lying on the beach and full of great stories about Santa Cruz Boardwalk and Great America and an Egyptian museum. They had done more this year than all their previous vacations. "Oh, we had fun," her mother said, pounding sand from her shoes before entering the house. Her father gave her a tight hug as her brothers ran by, dark from hours of swimming. Maria stared at the floor, miffed. How dare you have so much fun? While she worried herself sick about them, they splashed in waves, stayed at Great America until nightfall, and had eaten all kinds of restaurants. They even went shopping for fall school clothes. Feeling resentful as Johnny described a ride that dropped straight down and threw your stomach into your mouth, Maria turned away and went off to her bedroom, where she kicked off her shoes and thumbed through an old 17. Her family was alive and as obnoxious as ever. She took back all her promises. From now on, she would keep to herself and ignore them. When they asked, "Maria, would you help me?" she would pretend she did not hear and walk away. I will finish this in the second video.